All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we have a double header episode for you today. We will be recapping the Rams' loss against the Eagles in week 5, 14-23, as well as previewing our matchup this Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. Unfortunately, first, we have to talk about this loss, Jake. It was obviously a loss is never fun. It was against a very good team in the Eagles. We all knew going into this game that it was going to be tough. You and I both thought that the Rams' positive momentum would pull through, that we would pull it out and we'd get the win. But unfortunately, things just didn't go that way. We ended up losing by 9 points. Just not a super pretty game from the Rams. Jake, overall, this game against the undefeated Eagles, I'll add. There's only 2 undefeated teams in the NFL. The Eagles are one of them. What was your impression of this game? And I guess we'll start with, what was the main reason you think the Rams weren't able to pull out the win?
Yeah, I think they got off to a good start in the first half. And then the Eagles did what they do best to teams, and they bled the clock to the point where the Rams didn't have enough time to win the game. Now that's the simple term, but I think the longer way of putting it is that, look, the Eagles know their weaknesses. They know you can throw on them. They're very similar to the Niners. The secondary is their Achilles heel. However, they have a great defensive front. Even without Fletcher Cox, I was really impressed with not only the rookie who we raved about left and right and got everyone ready to see him, because Jalen Carter was a monster. Go figure, he's out this week. Anyway, not gonna be not gonna be bitter there, but they have guys like Jalen Carter. I thought Kentavious Street on film looked really good. Then you have, of course, Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick. And I just think that defensive front, it's just going to create just a lot of problems up front. And eventually, the Rams, I thought, had it bottled up at the beginning of the game. Stafford was able to throw the ball, and we saw the offense move. And I thought the offensive, like the passing attack, was opening up the run like we talked about. However, I do think after further review, I've changed my mind. I do think the Sean McVay abandoned the run. It wasn't necessarily that they didn't have a lot of time with the ball. It's that them abandoning the run led to them not having a lot of time to run the ball in the first place. But the Eagles, anyway, going back to it, the Eagles know their weakness, but they also know that, they're not going to give you a lot of time to throw the ball, and so I think there were guys open the whole game. To be honest with you, I don't think it was. I kept hearing, the Eagles made all these halftime adjustments. I didn't really see any when I was watching the tape. I think really, Stafford missed some throws he hits all day, every day. And I think the Eagles just, took care of the ball for the most part. I mean, they did have a turnover, but, I thought they did a nice job of just really bleeding the clock, running the ball in the second half. The Rams had a heavy emphasis on stopping the run, and I thought that was evident in how they stopped Swift. But once again, I don't know what it is, Alexis. I don't want to make too big of a point because I think the defense ultimately played pretty well, but I don't know what it is with this team and running quarterbacks. They've always been really good. The Rams, since they've had Sean McVay, they've always been really good at mitigating the quarterback run. But back-to-back weeks, we've seen it. I mean, Anthony Richardson was running all over this team, and then you had Jalen Hurts, who's running all over. I think it stems from not having a legit pass rush outside of a few guys, and that could be it. But it's definitely kind of weird to see, you know what I mean? How like Hurts
Yeah.
is just able to run around at free will, and just like Anthony Richardson was.
Yeah, I think, when I look back on this Eagles game, I thought the Rams actually looked pretty solid in the first half. It wasn't perfect, but they played well. Cooper Kupp, I was wrong. I thought that he wasn't going to be the number one guy this week, and he by far was. He was right back in perfect form, which was awesome to see. Him and Stafford's connection was really good. Puka Nakua, obviously, really good. We didn't run the ball, which I expected against this Eagles run defense, which is typically pretty good. But I did notice, I actually thought we did pretty good running the ball. The few times we ran it, we had success. So then I started to kind of change my tune, and I was like, all right, maybe we should be running the ball more. And then we didn't. And I do think in hindsight, I would have liked to have seen what could have happened if the Rams could have tried to establish more of a rhythm on the ground. I know that we'll never know if the Rams would have been more successful in this game because we didn't try to run it more. It just didn't happen. So hindsight's 2020. I wish that we would have tried to run the ball more. The second half felt really like reminiscent of some of the games that this Rams team has had in the past of not really closing out games. It's historically been a struggle. And I was nervous going into the second half for this reason. We did seem to fall apart. You mentioned getting pressure on the quarterback. That wasn't even my biggest concern with this defense. I mean, that's been a concern every week. The tackling was
Oh my
so bad.
God. Putrid.
And
11 missed tackles.
it was like, it's when a team is not tackling, it's like very hard to miss. It's very obvious. It's not, none of these Eagles players were just juking around and like becoming the most like evasive, elusive players on the field. No, the Rams were just like not tackling. And it wasn't just one guy. It was almost our entire defensive like squad. Like they was taking 5, 6, 7 guys before a guy went down. That was super concerning to me. It almost was comical and like not in the funny way for us. But if I were an Eagles fan watching that, it would have been funny. And that I did not like to see. And I felt like that was a huge reason our defense couldn't come off the field in the second half, was just they were like allergic to tackling. And it was at that point where I kind of started to feel like mid third quarter, this game's over. I mean, if you can't tackle, and also the Eagles offense is very good. So, but I want to also talk about a call that I feel like kind of puts the nail in the coffin for the Rams, and that was that 4th and 5 where we didn't go for it. And here's the thing, it was like, I think it was towards the end of the third quarter, and it's debatable a lot of times, I think, at that point, but we were down and we were struggling to stop that Eagles offense a lot. The Eagles offense was running all over our defense by that point. And in my mind, when Sean McVay chose to punt instead of go for it, I was like, that's the game, because you're allowing this Eagles offense back on the field. They're going to score again. They're going to at least get 3. You've been letting them march down the field. You got to at least try and get some points on the board. And that actually really made me angry. It made me as angry as all the missed tackling. So, I mean, I know that you agree with me. I'll let you give your thoughts on that, but it's just that call kind of was like, that was it for me. I realized that we probably weren't going to come out alive.
Yeah, we're going to be a bad duo here because there's a lot of agreement and not really any disagreement. You know what I mean? With this game, I
Yeah.
know just watching it. I mean, obviously, like we text throughout it, but just watching it, I know how you see the game and I know how I see the game, and you know how I see the game. So our thoughts pretty much align here. I felt like McVay had a great game plan, and then the second half he panicked. And I think the defense, they're on the field for almost 40 minutes of this game, and they only allow 23 points against the defending NFC champions with Jalen Hurts, with Devontae Smith, with, coming into this game, DeAndre Swift was second in rushing, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, and they're only able to get 23 points out of it. And to me, like, Sean McVay really put emphasis on a few things. I thought the pass protection, that the Kyren Williams blitz pickup, he put heavy emphasis on that chip when Warren McClendon was thrown in there, and he was like really upset with Kyren on that. I think it was just a poorly designed play when I watched it. I don't think. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, probably in that sense, you probably should have called a timeout, but you were also in a really bad spot where you're down by 9 or whatever they were down by at that point. Where I don't really know what the right decision is there. But I also have to point out that, to defend Kyron, it wasn't a full on chip. Like, that's something he motioned into. I think that's something you need to have him out there first to like really, know. Furthermore, I'll just say this. I think, Stafford missed a touchdown to Tutu Atwell that would have taken the lead. Then they go for the 3rd and 5. I think they missed a holding call on Cooper Kupp on that 3rd and 5 right before the 4th and 5. They punted away. But even still on the holding call, it's 3rd and 5. Just run the ball. Get it to 4th and manageable. That's 4 down territory. To your point, the defense just came off the field, 8 minutes, 17 play drive. So, you have to understand that as great as your defense is playing, you can't just punt it back. This isn't a field position battle. You are literally going to let them run out the clock. And that's what happened. And so, I look at this game as it was a little disappointing because I think the Rams definitely could have beaten a better opponent. And that's why the margin for error, we keep talking about that more than we've ever talked about it, margin for error, because this team is just not as talented as an Eagles team, as a 49ers team, as a Lions team, as the top tier teams. They're a team that is well coached, right? And they have talent, but it's a lot more potential with some really good talents kind of thrown in there. Where this team is looking at the playoffs, and then let's just see what happens when we get in the dance. They're not right now Super Bowl contenders. So I think that's the really important distinction there, is it's kind of like, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen. But this team from here on out, when they're going up against the 49ers or an Eagles team, the margin for error is very slim. I mean, when you talk about the Eagles winning the turnover battle, still losing by 9 at home, it kind of puts it into perspective. I mean, you have a really talented Eagles roster, a lot of depth all across the board. But I think this really kind of puts into perspective is that the Rams essentially have to play almost a perfect game to be a team like the Eagles and the Niners. And unfortunately, what we saw is that momentum can either make you or break you. And we saw the same exact end going into halftime as we did against the Niners. You go back to that call on Darian Kendrick, which was on Deebo Samuel, I believe. And then this one on AJ Brown. I didn't love the call, but I do agree with it to an extent, because he got his hand into his, into his collar. And I mean, you can't do that. But I do think AJ Brown got away with, and the announcers will say, "Oh man, AJ Brown's so physical. Oh, he's so gifted and physical," and they use physical all the time. AJ Brown pushes off the entire game. I've never seen a receiver get away with it the way he does, and I do think they missed some of those ticky tack on. They called it on Darian, and they didn't call it on AJ. And it's not me clamoring to the referees and blaming the referees for the loss, because I think the Eagles outplayed the Rams way more than the 49ers did. I think the Rams should have beaten the Niners, and I think they could have beaten the Eagles. That's where I'm at. Yeah, so it's not to just point the finger at the officials, Alexis. It's not to blame the officials for the Rams losing this game. The reason I bring it up is because I think Darian Kendrick moving forward, he's somebody you have to be, aware of in the red zone. This is how it works. Officials, he's already developed that reputation. He's one of the most penalized players at the position. I mean, this could be a killer late in the season, Alexis. I really believe that. And, what does that mean? Do you bench him? No, I don't think so. I think he's played really good football 97% of the time. And he surprised us both, I would say, because we both kind of felt like he would lose the job before the season. But at the same time, that 3% has been damning. And then on the other hand, you have Ahkello Witherspoon who's balling out. He looks like, one of the best corners in all of football right now. And the stats would indicate such. So, it is really annoying, I guess, to see somebody who definitely has the potential, definitely is playing well, but then he doesn't trust his tools in his toolbox. He doesn't trust his instincts. He doesn't trust his technique, and he gets panicky and he grabs hold of the receiver, and it's now happened in two of the most important games of the year.
Yeah, that was frustrating. And again, I just think the defense just did a lot of stuff in the second half that was frustrating, but also I do think they also just were gassed by the end of the game. They couldn't get off the field, and that's because our offense certainly didn't help them out. You mentioned earlier Matthew Stafford, just the accuracy that game just looked really off. He was stepping back on a lot of throws he should have stepped forward on. A lot of people caught on to that. So you like that tutu atwell throw. That's why he missed that, which I thought could have been a game changer. Just didn't seem super accurate that game. The offensive line started to struggle, which, again, they're playing the Philadelphia Eagles defensive front, which is very good. So I don't want to discredit that. That was certainly a reason for that, but I also just thought they kind of fell apart there a little bit. We didn't run the ball. Like I said, before the game, going into the game, I would have said, don't worry about the run game. It's not going to work. But then it did start to look like it started to work. And I felt like we probably should have at least stuck with it because, Kyron had a couple runs. He was showing that he could gain a couple yards. He averaged, I think, 4.1 yards per carry that game. So, maybe we should have, it would have helped when Stafford was not making these throws to run the ball. So just a lot of things that were frustrating to watch. And I didn't even think the Eagles played their best game. Like, the Eagles played well, but it wasn't like the Eagles came out and looked as good as we've seen them look before. That was also made it, just frustrating to watch this Rams team because I think they had an opportunity to beat a very talented team like the Eagles, who is undefeated and in the NFC, and they didn't. So it was frustrating. I mean, it is what it is. The Eagles are a very good team. I do think the Rams could have won that game, but I also think the Rams deserve to lose that game. I don't think that this was one of those games that the Rams, there was a lot that went wrong, and I think that they need to fix that. And I think it does start defensively, and I think it also, Matthew Stafford needs to play better when we face the Cardinals, which we're going to talk about here now. But before we talk about the Cardinals, Jake, do you know? Okay, so this is random, guys. This is not football related. This is a little break. And Jake's like, "What are you doing?" Do you know who is on this pillow? Because I'm having a conversation on Twitter, and you go for it.
Lucille Ball and what's her face? Hold on, don't say it. I'm not gonna remember.
So I'm going to show everyone. So on YouTube, if you're watching, you can see it because no one on Twitter knows who this is because it's on my mic side. I'm always leaning up against it. You can see Aubrey Plaza, but you can't see. This is. Now, do you know?
I just know one of them's Lucille Ball. I can't remember the other name.
You don't know who this is? You definitely do. You're just blanking.
No, I'm blanking. No, exactly. That's the thing.
It's Betty White.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
I told everyone on Twitter I would reveal that pillow on tonight's episode, so I wanted to do it before I forgot. But yeah, it's Lucille Ball and Betty White, and I know I'm doing them a disservice by keeping them on this side and always covering it up with like my arm and the mic. But yeah,
I know you're probably wait, so you knew Lucille Ball, but you didn't know Betty White? That's saying, oh, I know the Fearsome Foursome, Lamar Lundy. Who's that one guy? Who's that one guy? Like, and you can't name Deacon Jones or Merlin Olsen.
Well, to be fair, she is young in this picture. It's not like, I think, the classic Betty White that most people in our generation picture.
But I know who Betty White is. My brain
Everyone
is shot.
Does.
It's been a long week. That's why we're recording super late in the week.
Yeah, we've both had a very busy week, so it's mostly my fault we recorded so late. But we're doing it now. But yeah, it's Lucille Ball and Betty White. So everyone who was curious who was on that pillow, that's who it is. And then obviously everyone always sees Aubrey Plaza, who I'm seeing next month.
That one's nice.
In New York. But Okay, now that I got that out of the way and didn't forget, I'm also going to show that I'm wearing, I got the Born and Raised
Oh,
Rams hoodie.
nice. I
So
like it.
giving that a shout out. It's very cool. It's very high quality. And I got the graffiti one. So on the back of this, there's like the Rams graffiti. So if anyone wanted to buy it, do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm wearing the
Now,
one that you gifted me. So
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. That was your birthday gift last year, I
last
think.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. So we both got Rams hoodies on for everyone who's not watching on YouTube and can't see. That was our intermission, was me doing the pillow thing.
It was much needed because Alexis, I hate to break it
Yeah.
to you, but the second half with Rams games, they've scored 22 total points in the second half, not including OT. 22 total points in the second half from week 2 to week 5, right? They scored 23 in the second half of the Seahawks game.
It's not good.
No,
It's not
no,
good.
it's not.
It's not. I don't like what's becoming the Rams' second half reputation. That's the best way I can phrase it. I don't like it because it's
Something has to give here because you got two teams that the Rams are 0-2 at home. The Cardinals are 0-2 on the road. The Rams are a bad second half team. The Cardinals are the worst second half team. So something has to give. There's got to be some sort of, okay, like this where or they'll tie and no points will be scored. And that's just the way it'll be. I
it's just
can't see
not
it.
a good. It's not good because it's almost like a mentality thing. If you can't, it's like the Rams aren't capable of coming out in the second half and being a strong team, and that to me is concerning. It's like they have to be,
Yeah.
and that's almost like, and that's even statistically. I don't have it pulled up, but I know we've read this on the show. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, where it's like everyone, like the Rams have to be winning at half pretty much.
Yeah.
Very
I mean, you
few
mentioned it.
comebacks have
Sean
like,
panics.
yeah, it's not a good, I don't like it. It makes me uneasy. And with that, let's talk about the next game. So
Yeah.
let's talk about
Sean McVay might not even coach this game.
yeah. So Sean McVay's wife is expected to go into labor any day now. And Sean McVay has made it clear that if she goes into labor on Sunday, he will not be coaching naturally. So Raheem Morris most likely would be the interim head coach for the game against the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday, but that is going to be most likely not announced till Sunday morning. We won't know.
Everyone wants to know just like who's calling the plays at that point.
Yeah. So
it's
we
gonna
might
be
see
Mike
Raheem
LaFleur,
Morris.
but
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But and they play in Los Angeles, so that's also helpful for Sean. If she does go into labor, say that morning or something, he's going to be home. They're going to be in LA. It's good for the Rams that they're going to be home as well. They're playing the Arizona Cardinals, which, Jake, this is a team that everybody before the season kind of had the number one overall pick for 2024 like locked. Like this is a team that is kind of performing the way everyone expected them to, although they actually don't look that bad with Dobbs as their quarterback. Kyler Murray's
In the first
been hurt
half.
in the first half.
Yeah, they look good in the first half. They're in every game. Or they, in terms of, did you see the Giants game where they were up like 28-7? They blew it.
Yes,
That's who they are. They can get off to a good start, but finishing games has been brutal for them.
And they were better the first two games of the season, I feel like, because like they only lost by 4 to the Commanders. They lost by 3 to the Giants, and they really should have won that game. But then it's like they lost by like 12 to the Cowboys, and they get blown out by the 49ers. They lose by 12.
They beat the Cowboys.
Oh, you're right. Oh, they won. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
Yeah, that
I
was
wrote this down.
crazy.
Okay, they beat the Cowboys. Yes, you're right. They did beat the Cowboys. They got blown out by the 49ers after that game, and then they lost by 14 to the Bengals, who is another team that I think the Rams should have beaten. But Arizona Cardinals, James Conner, their starting running back, is out. Kyler Murray has been out. He's not playing. I think they have one of the weakest rosters on paper in the NFL. Not much going on there. They've lost a lot of talent over the years. Best offensive player's got to be Marquise Brown, obviously, but he's been frustrated because he's not really getting the ball as much as he thinks he should be, and everyone else thinks he should be as well. Now they don't have a running back. Jake, in my opinion, there's absolutely zero reason for the Rams to lose this game at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to be that bold. And I actually think that you agree with me because I've seen some of your tweets about it. But like there is no universe where there's an acceptable reason unless something happens. Maybe our entire offense catches bronchitis or something before the game and like can't play. Like there's no reason that if our team goes out there on Sunday, we should lose to the Arizona Cardinals. And we're going to talk about why. I'm going to let you go first, but there's no
I'm
reason.
glad you avoided the C word because when this goes on YouTube, it's like they're super cautious about that. So then we get put into a whole other basket. So nice job there.
Just
Alexis, the PR wizard over there. Yep. Anyway, I just have to point this out, okay? Josh Winefuss, I might have gotten his name wrong, on ESPN. His bold prediction, Alexis, listen to this. Cardinals quarterback Joshua Dobbs will make up for Connor's absence and have the best game of his career. He'll throw for more than 300 yards and rush for at least 100 against the Rams defense that ranks 16th in opponents scoring in the Cardinals' second win of the season. I mean, here's my thing. I don't think Josh has ever watched Rams football in 2023. If you think that Josh Dobbs is going to come out and have 400 total yards, he might have a decent game. 400 total yards. You did not watch the Rams this year because this is a narrative. Alexis, you can literally see who's watched the Rams and who hasn't. The people who are still talking about the defense like they're going to give up 600 yards a game and, they're going to, give up 40 points. Those are the people still stuck in August. Get with the program. Watch the actual games before you say stuff. It's clown work. But I had to point it out because, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and bold predictions are great, but that's asinine. I'm sorry. I would never have a bold prediction like that because that's just not reality. That's not even being bold. That's stupid.
Yeah, there's no situation that would be good for the Rams where that ends up coming. If that ends up coming true, we're going to have a very dark game recap. And again, this makes us sound like we're being so mean to Arizona Cardinals. I know they're our rival. I don't really hate the Cardinals. They just are. So I'm not trying to be talking like this about I would be talking the same way about them if they weren't in our division. Is what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to knock down or belittle a team that's in our division, but this team is 1-4. This is a team that a lot of people think and still think are going to tank for Caleb Williams, in that pool. Kind of a nightmare coming out about that organization right now, about the working conditions over there and the owner not being a nice guy. So it's just there's a lot of stuff going on with them. And I just, in terms of this game, in terms of on the field, there has not been much to be optimistic about other than Dobbs, their quarterback, their backup quarterback, who I think has actually looked halfway decent. And I think is been somewhat impressive, but just on paper and on the field, not very good. James Conner out, like I mentioned earlier. He's their starting running back. I'm blanking on who their backup is. Is it Ingram? He's not their second string, is it?
Oh, the backup running back, Keontae Ingram or Amari DeMarcado.
Okay, so Ingram.
But,
okay.
I mean, Ingram's kind of who they're announcing as the backup, as the starter. But Amari DeMarcado, I think he had 10 carries last week. He's definitely somebody that they've been leaning on as of late. He had 10 carries last week for 45 and a touchdown. So, I mean, he's kind of the X factor, I think, for the Cardinals, number 31. TCU running back, 5'9", about 220. I don't know if you remember him in the draft. But yeah, DeMarcado, he's a UDFA from this year. And I think we're going to see him a lot. But Keontae Ingram out of USC, I mean, he's playing in LA, so he's going to want to show out.
Well, let's talk about that offense briefly because they do have guys in that offense that I do like a lot. That I think are better than the way that they've been performing, like Marquise Brown, right? I think he's very talented. Rondale Moore, I liked a lot in the draft. Michael Wilson, their rookie wide receiver, has actually been, I just mixed three words, rookie, wide receiver, and Wilson. I tried to say all at the same
I
time.
love the Star
Um,
Wars reference.
yeah. Anyways, the rookie wide receiver out of Stanford for the Cardinals, also known as Sophia Smith's boyfriend. If you don't know who Sophia Smith is, she's a
Yeah.
U.S. women's national team
Oh, I do
soccer
know who that
star.
is. Yeah.
He's actually been having like a pretty good rookie season so far. He's gotten involved in that Cardinals offense a lot. So he's a guy that might see a lot of action that game. They have Zach Ertz, who I think is relatively healthy now, Trey McBride. We talked about the running back situation. So it's not a bad offense. They
Uh,
have
I don't know.
well, and I'm talking about talent wise. They got guys that you would think.
I
Well,
like
I still
Michael
think they're
Wilson a
talented.
lot. Like, yeah, I mean, people forget Michael Wilson was an absolute stud at Stanford. He ended up going in the
Mhm.
third round, and the guy has a bevy of injury issues. So, I mean, he
Yeah.
probably was a first round talent. The tape shows that he was an absolute stud. But Michael Wilson, when targeted, he's got one of the highest passer ratings when targeted in the league. So it's like over like 140 or something. Like it's incredible. Like he's a big reason why they were able to upset Dallas. So I think if I'm looking at anybody in this game, I mean Marquise Brown seems like an obvious one, but Michael Wilson on Darion Kendrick, like if Darion Kendrick struggles there, because I mean I trusted Keller Witherspoon to do his job. He's been one of the best corners in all of football. But if Darion Kendrick struggles early on with Michael Wilson, that's how, Josh Dobbs can get those yards that this dude was, predicting. And then he can get, into a rhythm and they can start moving the ball and start pressuring this Rams offense to have to score. Because the assumption is, man, if the defense only gives up, say, I don't know, 17, 20, the Rams offense can definitely score 21 points. And now there's no way we can just assume that with the way that they played last week and how they've played in the second half.
Yeah. I want to add on to that as well. Someone on that. So I was looking at their offensive line. I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to remember their depth chart, but I do like their rookie right tackle, Paris Johnson Jr.
Yes.
I do think that that's going to be an interesting matchup, whoever goes against him, because he's, I think, their best offensive lineman as a rookie. There's no one else on that offensive line. I mean, Will Hernandez back in the day for the Giants,
Yeah,
liked watching
he's
him play. Other than Elijah Wilkinson, I'm not high on. DJ Humphries, it's just not looking good. So I would like to see this Rams team try to pressure the quarterback this game. That is something, they've struggled with, but I think that if, this would probably be a good game to try and get those reps in, try to get those sack numbers up, because I don't really think, other than Paris Johnson, there's much going on there. So I don't think this Arizona Cardinals offense is going to have much success against this Rams defense if this Rams defense can play to their potential. But looking at this Arizona defense, Jake, what do you think the key for them? They've got like Kaiser White, Fotu, Jonathan Ledbetter, although I think he's injured actually. In the secondary, they've got like Kayvon Wallace, Marco Wilson. I mean, Zayvon Collins, obviously, but like there's not also a ton going on there. What do you think is the key for this Rams offense, who had a poor showing against the Eagles, to come back and have a statement game against Arizona? Or is it return to the run game? Is it pound the ball? I mean, this not really a strong defensive front here, but they also don't really have a strong secondary. You think you try to the passing game beat up the secondary. I mean, what's the key here in this game?
Yeah. I think so far, just kind of looking at their defense and just, watching the games, Victor Demukeji, their edge defender, and Dennis Gardeck, I think have played pretty well. Demukeji might sound familiar to some. He was drafted in 2021. He's really taken the next step, I think, out of Duke, a sixth rounder they've stuck by. So when you look at him, and of course, Gardeck as well, they've been getting some good pressure. Demukeji leads the team in pressures, but this is still not a team that has a great pass rush. So I do think that does make it really difficult on a young secondary that's, rocking with guys like Antonio Hamilton, Cottrell Clark, Marco Wilson's kind of the main guy there. But they're also not fully healthy. I mean, Jalen Thompson, they got Garrett Williams, Buda Baker is on IR. So we just saw, Jamar Chase just had 3 touchdowns and I think over 200 or close to 200 yards last week against the secondary. It's very susceptible to getting beat. I think right now, Kayvon Wallace is going to be like your main safety there. And not even really sure who they're going to rock at the other safety spot. It might be Quantrez Knight, who was just on the Niners practice squad, who they just signed not that long ago. So, at this point in time, it's tough for Arizona. I mean, we're really, we're seeing a team that just right now, they're trying to get by. I mean, this is a year where we knew they weren't going to be a good team. And, a lot of people think they're tanking. The players aren't tanking. I think that's an important distinction there. But I think the big thing here is if Jalen Thompson doesn't play, and I don't believe he is going to play. I think he is actually ruled out for this game. It's going to make things really difficult, Alexis, because now you're down to, you're down pretty low on the safeties. Andre Chachir is the backup safety, so he would probably start. Joey Blunt would also get some reps as well, but Kayvon Wallace would be the main guy in the back end, the secondary. And mind you, this defense played 82 snaps last week against the Bengals. So they needed a full week to prepare for this game and get ready because it was not great. There's a lot of, it wasn't as many missed tackles as the Rams, but they had some missed tackles and just yards after the catch. Wilson and Antonio Hamilton and Kaiser White were giving up, a bunch there. And then, of course, Andre Chachir, 158.3 passer rating when targeted. That's perfect. So the guy really wasn't doing anything in coverage, and teams were picking on him because of it. Marco Wilson, 130.8. So this secondary, to me, when I look at this game, Alexis, this is a get-right game, a classic get-right game. Right now, the Rams are 2-3. You win this game, this is the rest of your season. You want to get to 3-3, bury your division rival. 1-5 ends their season pretty much at this point. Bury your division rival. And in addition to that, find a way to find some momentum on the offensive side of the football. Because you already know the defense has done well against good opponents this year. Start to find some consistency, build some consistency. I don't want to see any. Doesn't matter if this is a blowout. I don't want to see any starters taken out. I want to see them get the actual reps in this one. This is also the first game since they traded Van Jefferson, which makes me sad. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for a guy like Ben Skoranek to have a bigger role. It's an opportunity for guys like maybe, DeMarcus Robinson, who's kind of been on the pine throughout the whole year. It's an opportunity, for, some of the other guys, whether that's a tight end in Bryson Hopkins or Davis Allen, or, the returner whose name is totally escaping me. So Trammell, thank you, Austin Trammell. So I think that's kind of the thing here, is that this is a really good opportunity to go up against a team that when quarterbacks targeted them last week, just Joe Burrow, of course, 4 of the defensive players in the secondary for the Cardinals had above 100 passer rating when targeted. That is ridiculous. Burrow was just, I don't even think Burrow looked that great. It's not that he looked bad, right? But I just think the secondary was that bad. And so I think this is a huge opportunity. You're at home. get right, just win however you can. But and style points don't matter, but if you can go with the style points in this one, if you can win this by 17, 24, whatever, like I'm doing that because I think this is a huge opportunity to build some momentum going into the Pittsburgh game, which is going to be a tough defense, going in against Dallas, going in against the Packers and so forth. I mean, this team right now, they're in 10th place. They have the 10th seed, top 7 make it. You can't tell me right now that the Rams aren't a playoff team. I mean, look at the teams in front of them. I think that they are pretty much better than most of the teams outside of the Eagles, the Lions, and the 49ers. So now it's up to them to prove that. And I think it starts with a really nice all 3 phases win against the Arizona Cardinals.
I agree. You know, I would like to see the Rams start off talking offensively with a balanced offense. I want to see us run the ball a lot to begin with, because I think we'll have success, but I also think that we're going to have success, like you mentioned earlier, in the passing game, targeting the secondary. But I would like to see the Rams, if they can maybe get up a touchdown, get up 2 touchdowns, just try everything. I mean, don't throw the game away, but just really get confident in doing all of those things that maybe you haven't been doing. Maybe, you know, go deep in the playbook. I'd like to see some other guys get a chance, like Ben Skowronek. You know, I think he's now wide receiver 4, as I think we both talked about on Twitter, but maybe get Demarcus Robinson involved. We'll see if he's active. You know, Ronnie Rivers, let's get him more reps. Let him run more. Maybe you see a guy like even Zach Evans be a healthy starter. So, you know, I just want to see a little bit more diversity of this offense. I don't want to see them go out there and just only target Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, which if that's how you need to win the game, do it. But if you get ahead, I don't think we need to do that. I would like to see them get momentum back. I'd like to see them get confidence back. Like you said, get right game. I think this is the game to do it. So we'll see. But let's get into our predictions.
Yes.
I'll let you go first. But I have a feeling both of our predictions might be a little offense heavy because we just talked about this matchup against this kind of struggling Arizona Cardinals defense. So, Jake, what are your predictions for Rams Cardinals this Sunday?
Yeah. So this Sunday, I predicted 2 sacks and he almost had 2 sacks. We'll start off with this. Last week, he was held both times. O'Shawn Mathis, I thought he played extremely well. In 10 snaps, he had 2 pressures. For reference, Frank Clark has 38 snaps and has 0 pressures. So there's that. But looking at last week, the Cardinals gave up 2 sacks. And most notably, it was DJ Humphries, who I really do believe is a good player. But this year at left tackle, he's somewhat struggling. So I think I could see somebody like a Byron Young or O'Shawn Mathis getting 2 sacks again on DJ Humphries. So I'll say this. I'm going to go with O'Shawn Mathis and Byron Young each get a sack in this game. Then I'm going to pivot to the offense. And I am going to say that Cooper Kupp and Tutu Atwell both go over 100 yards, and Puka Nacua goes over 60. Puka Nacua goes over 70. So I'm going to say Puka Nacua goes over 70. Cooper Kupp goes over 100. Tutu Atwell goes over 100. They missed Atwell a few times last week. Atwell ends up finishing with some pedestrian 3 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown line. But in reality, like if Stafford hits him there, that's like 4 catches for 80 yards or something. I think he's going to be able to take advantage of that secondary. We saw with Jamar Chase. I mean, who on the Rams receiver room, kind of compares to Jamar Chase as far as his play style? It's Tutu Atwell with that speed over the top. And so I think if he was giving Andre Chichir fits and guys like that, I don't see how they're going to be able to, accommodate for Tutu Atwell. Because if you over prepare for Tutu Atwell, well, now Puka Nacua can go off. And if you're not ready for him, or if you go after him and you try to double him or something, now Cooper Kupp can go off. And if you try to shut down all three of those guys, you can run the ball at Kyron Williams. You can throw it to him. You got Tyler Higbee. There's just too much here for me to not say that like that's going to happen. And I think the final one here is that the Rams are going to score. I think the Rams are going to score 30. I don't know. I think the Rams go over 34 points in the game. I think this is going to be a high scoring game for them. I think this is, I mean, we said it needs to be their get right game. I think it is their get right game. I think they do get right. I think this is the start of something, building it on the offense, playing both quarters or both halves, excuse me. I think that's what we'll see. And I also think, by the way, Kyron Williams is going to be able to run the football against this team as well. So I think this is just going to be an offensive, like I don't want to say clinic, but I think they're going to come in and just impose their will at home against an inferior Arizona team.
So my first prediction is a Ben Skoranek touchdown, because I feel like he's, like I said, he's now wide receiver 4. I feel like they're going to want to get him involved more. I don't know if it's going to be a rushing touchdown. I don't know if it's going to be, a slant. I don't know how it's going to happen, but
I think he scored last year against them.
Yeah, I just think that they're going to get him involved, and maybe not a lot, but they're going to use him in the red zone, I think. And I think he's going to end up with a touchdown. I think Puka Nacua gets 2 touchdowns this game. That, I don't know if that's even a bold prediction because he's Puka Nacua and we've seen what he could do, but I do think he's going for 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, I was going to say Byron Young 2 sacks. But I'm going to throw in another one because you mentioned Byron Young in one of your predictions. So I'm going to say Witherspoon gets another interception. He's hot. I don't really trust this Arizona passing game to go that smoothly for them. So let's say Witherspoon interception, Byron Young 2 sacks. Yeah. I could make up more stuff, but I'm going to stick with my original ones and that Witherspoon. The Skoranek one is probably the least likely of all that to happen, but I do think I want to be surprised. I think that now that he's wide receiver 4, he's going to get involved more. You touched on your score prediction kind of already. You said you think the Rams are scoring at least 34. My score prediction was 34-10. So I had that 34 number in mind as well. I think the Rams are winning 34-10. What's your score prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 38-13.
Okay, so similar range.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and trust me, it's a divisional game, and if it's close, it's close. But I can't in good conscience lie to my viewership just because it's a divisional game and they're normally close. I mean, I really do feel like the Rams are just going to come in and kick the shit out of the Cardinals. I really believe that. Because I think there's a lot of frustration built up where, now it's like all these people don't think the Rams are good. Oh, they're 2-3. It's like, if you look at Alexis, look who they've gone up against in those five games. 4 out of those 5 teams were playoff teams last year, right? And they beat the crap out of Seattle on the road. And I feel like the Rams still haven't won a game at home. This is their 3rd home game. They have not won a game yet. I don't think it's just going to be a nice, come from behind win or a game managed win. I think this is going to be a beatdown. And I think it's going to have to, because I think they're going to have to send a message to the rest of the NFC, don't count us out. Do not count us out. And you have to get ready, because that Steeler game is going to be a problem. We've seen it in the past. Their defense is disgusting. As far as their, pass rush goes, that could pose a lot of issues. So I think it's really in their best interest to just get the offense going, and just Sean McVay, if you are coaching, I think the main thing is you have to look at this as almost like you're practicing, the idea of putting your foot down on someone else's neck and not letting go. Because I think that's something that Sean has simply kind of, I mean, he's had moments where he has. We've been at them, the Giants games, but I still feel as though there needs to be more urgency. There needs to be more like, all right, just because you get a lead doesn't mean you have to play conservative. You're at home. It's different when you're on the road, It's like road, take the points, right? At home, it's a different animal. I have the home field advantage. And trust me, if there's one game where the Rams' home field advantage will be evident, it is against the Arizona Cardinals. That team does not travel well. And all Rams fans, the last, pretty much every time they play the Cardinals, the thing is raucous. I mean, remember that playoff game against the Cardinals? Like, that felt like a legit home field advantage. They didn't feel that way last week. You had the silent count. I think the Rams are going to come out. I think also the silent count, I do want to point out, I think that had something to do with the Eagles' second half. I think it's fair to point it out because even Jalen Carter pointed it out. They were timing the silent count hand gesture. But I think that in this game, no silent count, crowd on your side. It kind of screams beat down for me. And I can either be conservative and not, put my money where my mouth is and not practice what I preach and telling Sean McVay to step on their throat. Or I can, and I could actually say, look, they're going to step on their throat and not let go. And I think that's what happens. I think they clearly have the talent. And Arizona, man, they're that team. They're like the that one dude that fights Rocky Balboa in the movies, and just he's like standing up like this, and you're like, good effort, man, but why are you up? You're not winning this, you know what I mean? And they're just like this close to getting knocked the hell out. And I think this week they get knocked the hell out and their season's going to go down the drain because, again, no Budda Baker, no Jalen Thompson, no James Conner. Those are three of your most important players on your team. It's only a matter of time before this team completely crumbles. But you got to give credit where credit's due because they've been as competitive as you can be with this lack of talent.
I agree. I don't think that Sunday is going to go well for the Arizona Cardinals, and I hope it doesn't. As a Rams fan, I would love to see the Rams play a complete game. I would love them to not take their foot off the gas, and I think we're both predicting that that's what's going to happen. So we'll see here soon. But guys, that's going to do it for us. Both predicting a Rams win against the Arizona Cardinals this Sunday. We'll be back after that game with a recap episode. But until then, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And we'll be back soon. But until then, guys, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.